34 years ago, America stunned the world with the F-22 Raptor, but today, a new ghost is rising, one that could change air power forever. It's called the F-47, Boeing's next-generation air dominance fighter. And here's the twist, it isn't coming in the 2030s like everyone believed. New reports and insider sources indicate that this jet could be flying by the late 2020s, years ahead of schedule. Why does that matter? Because China isn't waiting. Their stealthy J-20 is already in the skies, their 6th-generation prototypes are moving quickly, and the balance of power in the Pacific could shift before the decade ends. If America doesn't leap ahead now, it risks losing control of the most important battle space on Earth. Welcome to Jet Insight. Today we're breaking down how Boeing's F-47 NGAD fighter went from a classified dream to a real jet that could take off far earlier than anyone expected, and why that could change the balance of air power in the Pacific for decades. The shocking reveal. For years, the Next Generation Air Dominance program was treated like a shadow, real but hidden, with almost nothing escaping the Pentagon's walls. Most people believed the Air Force's 6th-generation fighter wouldn't be seen until the mid-2030s. That was the accepted wisdom. Too advanced, too ambitious, too classified. But then, in March 2025, the silence broke. The Pentagon confirmed what no one saw coming. Boeing had been awarded the contract for the manned fighter portion of NGAD, now officially called the F-47. What stunned defense watchers wasn't just the winner of the contract, it was the timeline. Instead of talking about the distant 2030s, officials began hinting that the F-47 could be flying sooner than anyone believed. Reports of advanced prototypes, early production activity, and factory investments painted a very different picture. Suddenly, whispers of a first flight in the late 2020s weren't just rumors, they were serious possibilities. This revelation was more than a scheduling surprise. It raised the stakes in the global race for air superiority, because while America was guarding its secrets, China was moving fast. The PLA Air Force already had the J-20 in service, and by some accounts, their own 6th-generation prototypes are airborne. If Beijing reaches full capability before Washington, the balance of power in the Pacific tilts in a dangerous direction. That's why the F-47's potential early debut matters so much. It's not just about building the next fighter. It's about proving America can still out-innovate its rivals, still push technology into the future faster than anyone else. The shock wasn't only that Boeing won, it was that the future could be here, years ahead of schedule. To understand why the F-47 matters, you first have to understand what NGAD actually is. For years, people assumed it was just the Air Force's next stealth fighter, the successor to the F-22 Raptor, but NGAD is bigger than that. The Pentagon calls it a system of systems, a network of manned fighters, autonomous drones, new weapons, and advanced data-sharing technology, all designed to fight as one. At the center of this system is the manned aircraft, the F-47. This isn't just a plane, it's a quarterback. A single pilot will command not just their jet, but an entire formation of collaborative combat aircraft, drones that can scout, jam radars, or even fire weapons under human direction. Imagine one fighter pilot turning into the brain of a small air force, directing robotic wingmen in real time. That's NGAD's vision. The F-47 will also embody the most advanced design features ever put into a US aircraft. Extreme range, stealth beyond what the F-35 can achieve, and the ability to share battle data instantly with satellites, ships, and ground forces. It won't fly alone, it will be part of a vast digital combat cloud. And here's where Boeing's win comes in. For decades, Boeing's fighter division in St. Louis lived in the shadow of Lockheed Martin's F-22 and F-35 programs. The Super Hornet kept them in the game, but everyone knew they needed a new contract to survive. With NGAD, Boeing isn't just building a plane, they're building their future. Winning the F-47 contract gave them redemption, but also a responsibility to deliver the most ambitious fighter program in American history on a timeline that is already being accelerated. This is why NGAD can't be looked at like any other program. The F-22 was revolutionary in the 1990s. The F-35 was a leap in the 2000s, but NGAD is different. It isn't about one aircraft dominating the skies. It's about an entire system changing how wars are fought. And if the F-47 really does arrive sooner than expected, it means that revolution begins this decade, not the next. Part 2. Now, what makes the F-47 so different isn't just that it's newer than the F-22 or F-35. It's designed for a battlefield the US has never faced before, a battlefield dominated by long-range missiles, powerful radars, and swarms of enemy aircraft. To survive in that environment, the F-47 needs more than stealth. It needs an entirely new playbook. First off, range. The Air Force has made it clear, future conflicts won't be fought just a few hundred miles off America's coast. They'll be fought over the vast distances of the Pacific, where US carriers and bases might be pushed back thousands of miles by Chinese anti-ship and anti-air missiles. The F-22's biggest flaw was its short legs. It was never meant for the Pacific. The F-47 fixes that. Analysts suggest it could have a combat radius exceeding 1,000 nautical miles, potentially double what the Raptor can manage. That kind of reach means it can strike deep into enemy territory while keeping American carriers and bases safely out of missile range. Second is stealth. The F-35 and F-22 pioneered stealth technology, but radars have evolved. China and Russia are developing systems designed to track stealth aircraft at longer ranges. To stay invisible, the F-47 will need what experts call stealth double plus, new shaping techniques, radar-absorbent materials, and active countermeasures that make it virtually undetectable. Boeing hasn't released details, but the very fact that the Air Force is betting its future on this jet tells us it's operating at the bleeding edge of stealth design. Third is propulsion. Range and stealth mean nothing if you can't move quickly and powerfully. That's where the Next Generation Adaptive Propulsion Program, NGAP, comes in. Unlike traditional engines, these adaptive cycle engines can shift between modes, maximizing fuel efficiency when cruising, then delivering bursts of raw power when speed is needed. It's like having two engines in one, a long-distance cruiser and a supersonic sprinter. If successful, this engine will give the F-47 unprecedented flexibility, allowing it to reach super cruise speeds beyond Mach 2 without guzzling fuel, plus the ability to sustain long-range missions across the Pacific. Fourth is AI and teaming. Perhaps the most revolutionary piece is the F-47's ability to control collaborative combat aircraft, CCA. These drones won't just fly in formation, they'll act as extensions of the pilot. One CCA might scout enemy positions, another could jam the radar, a third could carry extra missiles, all of them working together, networked back to the F-47's cockpit. Instead of one fighter, the enemy suddenly faces a distributed swarm of threats, each coordinated by artificial intelligence, but directed by a human pilot. It's the difference between fighting one soldier and fighting a soldier who commands a squad of robots. Finally, we have networking. Modern wars are fought on information, not just firepower. The F-47 is being built to be a node in a vast digital warfighting web, which includes satellites, drones, ships, and ground troops, all connected in real time. The pilot won't just see their own sensors, they'll see the entire battlefield stitched together. That's how the F-47 wins, not just by being stealthy or fast, but by turning the fog of war into perfect clarity for American forces, while leaving the enemy blind. The bottom line, the F-47 isn't an upgrade, it's a revolution. Every lesson learned from the F-22, the F-35, and even classified programs like the B-21 bomber is being poured into this jet. The Air Force isn't just building another fighter, it's building the future of air dominance, a machine designed to outthink, outrange, and outfight any adversary in the world. Now here's where the story gets shocking. For years, the NGAD fighter was described as a program for the 2030s. Officials talked about research, about technology maturation, about concepts being tested in laboratories. Everyone assumed we were a decade away from seeing a flyable jet. But in 2025, everything changed. When Boeing won the contract for the F-47, defense reporters expected the usual, a slow rollout, years of paperwork, and then maybe a prototype around 2032. Instead, what they discovered was that Boeing was already moving and fast. At their facility in St. Louis, Boeing announced a $1.8 billion investment in a brand new advanced production line. This isn't just a paper factory, it's being built specifically to produce the F-47, with cutting-edge digital engineering tools, robotic assembly systems, and a workforce already being hired and trained. Construction timelines suggest the facility will be fully operational by 2026. That means production-capable jets could be rolling out of the factory by the late 2020s, years ahead of schedule. And that's not all. Multiple reports suggest the Air Force already has prototype aircraft flying under the NGAD program, even before Boeing's official contract win. These demonstrators were said to prove out stealth shaping, advanced propulsion, and drone teaming years ago. If that's true, then the F-47 isn't starting from zero. It's building on technology that's already been tested in the air. That shortens the timeline dramatically. The Air Force has even hinted at dates. Senior officials have suggested a first flight before 2030, with some sources pointing to as early as 2028. That might sound far away, but in defense acquisition, it's lightning fast. For comparison, the F-22 program took nearly 15 years from contract award to combat ready. The F-47 could be doing it in under half that time. Why does this matter? Because speed is now the most valuable weapon America has. China is racing ahead with its own 6th-generation designs, reportedly preparing a carrier-based stealth fighter to rival NGAD. Every year of delay is another year where Beijing closes the gap. If the F-47 can fly sooner, it buys the US a critical advantage. It means America sets the pace, forcing China to catch up, instead of the other way around. It also changes the political landscape. An earlier timeline means earlier funding requests, earlier congressional battles, and earlier decisions about how many F-47s the Air Force can afford. With each passing month, the program becomes less hypothetical and more real, forcing lawmakers to face the choice: commit to this aircraft now, or risk falling behind in the Pacific later. In short, the F-47's timeline being pulled forward is more than just a scheduling quirk, it's a strategic shift. It signals that the US doesn't plan to wait for the 2030s to secure air dominance. It plans to do it this decade, and that could change the balance of power in Asia before the next war even begins. Part 3. To really understand why the F-47's early debut matters, you have to look at the map, specifically the Pacific Ocean. This is the battlefield the Pentagon is preparing for, and it's unlike anything America has faced before. China's military modernization has been laser focused on one goal: pushing American forces out of the Western Pacific. They've built a vast network of long-range anti-ship missiles that can reach hundreds of miles beyond their coast. They've deployed advanced surface-to-air systems that blanket the skies over the South China Sea, and they're rapidly expanding the People's Liberation Army Air Force with the J-20 Mighty Dragon stealth fighter already in mass production and carrier-based stealth fighters reportedly in development. For the first time since World War II, the US risks being challenged in air dominance, the very foundation of American power projection. Without control of the skies, carriers can't get close, bases in Japan and Guam become vulnerable, and allied nations begin to doubt America's ability to defend them. That's the nightmare scenario the Pentagon is racing to prevent. This is where the F-47 comes in. Its extreme range allows it to launch from bases or carriers, positioned safely beyond Chinese missile envelopes, yet still strike deep into contested airspace. Its Stealth++ design means it can slip through dense radar networks, surviving where older fighters like the F-15 or F-A-18 would be swatted from the sky. And with its AI drone wingmen, the F-47 can expand its reach even further, sending unmanned aircraft forward as scouts, decoys, or even strike assets. Think about what that means in a real conflict. A squadron of F-47s launches from a carrier parked well east of the Philippine Sea. The fighters never have to approach within range of China's DF-21 and DF-26 carrier killer missiles. Instead, their drone teammates push forward, mapping defenses, confusing radars, and even firing the first shots. By the time Chinese forces realize what's happening, the F-47s themselves are already slipping in undetected to deliver the knockout blow. The message this sends is powerful. To allies like Japan, South Korea, Australia, and the Philippines, the early arrival of the F-47 signals that America isn't just planning for tomorrow, it's ready to defend them today. To adversaries, it shows that US innovation still leads the world, and that attempts to close the gap are already being met with a leap forward. In the Pacific, perception is everything. If Beijing believes it can outmatch the US in air power, it may gamble on aggressive moves around Taiwan or the South China Sea. But if the F-47 appears sooner than expected, it resets the equation. It tells China, not yet, not today, the skies still belong to America. But make no mistake, bringing the F-47 to life isn't going to be easy. In fact, this might be the most ambitious fighter program in US history, and with ambition comes risk. The first risk is cost. The F-22 Raptor was famously expensive, so expensive that production was cut short at just 187 jets. The F-35 was supposed to be cheaper, but decades of overruns turned it into the most costly weapons program ever. The Air Force knows it can't afford another budget disaster, yet the F-47 is expected to cost hundreds of millions of dollars per aircraft. That's the price of cutting-edge technology, but it's also a political target. Every year, lawmakers will ask whether America can afford it, or whether cheaper alternatives should be considered. The second risk is propulsion. The adaptive cycle engine is one of the most revolutionary technologies in the F-47, but it's also one of the hardest to perfect. Reports already suggest the next generation adaptive propulsion (NGAP) program is facing delays. If the engine isn't ready in time, the F-47 could be forced to use an interim power plant, sacrificing performance and range. It wouldn't be the first time. Early F-35s flew with downgraded engines until improvements caught up. But for the F-47, losing its propulsion edge could compromise the very advantage it's supposed to deliver. The third risk is industrial. Boeing's St. Louis plant is undergoing a massive modernization effort to handle the F-47, but ramping up advanced production is never simple. Every part, from radar-absorbing composites to high-performance avionics, depends on supply chains that are already strained. Even small bottlenecks could cause big delays. If suppliers fail to deliver, the whole program slows down. Yet despite the risks, the payoffs are enormous. If Boeing and the Air Force succeed, the F-47 won't just be another fighter. It will be America's next ghost aircraft, the successor to the Raptor, the replacement for the Eagle, and the answer to China's mighty Dragon. It will ensure that when the next great power conflict looms, American pilots enter the fight with the most advanced aircraft ever built. And there's a symbolic element here too. Just like the YF-23 Black Widow became a ghost of what could have been, the F-47 carries its own mythology. For years, NGAD was dismissed as vaporware, a future project that might never leave the drawing board. Now with Boeing building factories and timelines accelerating, the ghost is becoming real. The F-47 isn't just a fighter, it's proof that America doesn't wait for threats to catch up. It leaps ahead. The road ahead is uncertain. Budgets will be fought over. Engines will be tested. Factories will either hit deadlines or slip. But if everything comes together, the F-47 could be flying by 2028, years earlier than predicted. And when it does, it will send a clear message across the Pacific and beyond. The era of American air dominance is not ending. It's only the beginning of a new chapter. So now the question is yours. Do you believe the F-47 can arrive in time to keep America ahead? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And if you want more deep dives into the stories shaping the future of military aviation, hit that like button and subscribe.